Okay, we did it. Hi, Valerio. How are you?
Hi, George. I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and I always like to highlight the fact that when I hit live, we need to pretend that we didn't meet before, right? That we
Oh, yeah.
weren't talking like a few seconds ago.
Nice to see you today. It's been a
Yeah,
long
for the
time.
first time ever, right?
Yeah.
No, hi, and thank you very much for joining me. Just my usual introduction. Hi, everyone. If you're watching this, first of all, thank you very much to you as well. This is just a little project of mine called the Security Bread Podcast, where I invite cool people like Valerio to just have a chat on some recent security news, mostly for two reasons. First of all, so I can take myself updated. So I'm forced to read some news. I need some external drivers, and just because talking with other people with, especially with different backgrounds, different skill and knowledge, can really help into the learning process. And hopefully, you watching this, you listening to us, can help as well, especially if you interact with us here on Twitch live. You can use the chat to comment or just ask any questions, or this video will be also re-uploaded later on YouTube, and the audio will be re-uploaded on Spotify and other audio platforms. So feel free to have a look at those and hit that subscribe button. That will always help. And yeah, give us any feedback that will help to improve this. That's really all. Today with me there's Valerio Bianconi, that is actually a colleague of mine. Valerio, would you like to have a quick introduction of yourself, just to know who you are?
Yes. Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Giorgio, and thanks for having me. So I'm Valerio. As I said, work with Giorgio. I'm based in the UK. Although I'm Italian, you can probably spot from my accent. I work in the customer success technical account management organization at Vectra, same company as Giorgio. I've been working in the cybersecurity field for the last 8 years now, in a number of roles and different areas of cybersecurity, if you like. And yeah, very, very happy to be here today.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's it. I'm actually going to share my screen in a second, so I can start. We can start with the first news that we have today. So here we are. Just a second. Oops. Yep, you should be able to see it. So yeah, that's it. This is the first story we have, and I'm going to introduce it. So all of the news today, I think, are very interesting, but yeah, there are different points that I'm going to highlight. The first story that you can see on the screen is talking about, once again, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and particularly the I'm going to quote here because I don't remember the acronym, but the SBU, so the State Security Service from Ukraine, has shared a report where they are describing how the Russian party basically had tried to hack into the infrastructure, into the network that the Ukraine is using for also, of course, for military communications. If you don't know, this has been in the news from a while now. Ukraine is actually using the Starlink, satellite connection. Starlink is a company from Elon Musk that basically, has all of this network of satellites deployed all over the atmosphere, I will say, and yeah, enable companies, organizations, or even states in this case to use this as their main connection to the internet. And since Russia have been targeting the network infrastructure of Ukraine for so long, uh, Starlink had been the perfect replacement for the cable connection, basically, right? Something
Yeah.
that they cannot easily reach and easily destroy. or disrupt. So apparently the purpose of the target of the attack was the Starlink infrastructure. It's not really clear how that will be the case. I'm going into that in a second, but yeah, I think this is the start point here. Satellite connection, the fact that they could be a little more reliable, at least during a conflict like this. And yeah, how once again the cyber aspect of a war here is once again very important, right? Yeah, I don't know what's the first thoughts you had reading this. I had a couple of them, but taking them for my part.
No, thanks. I think it's really interesting to see that Ukraine is using the Starlink, let's call it infrastructure or satellite system. I mean, I personally didn't know that before reading this article.
Okay.
I mean, a couple of things there. I mean, I think the first one is I appreciate that this is probably not the most secure system in a way. But, I mean, I think there is also the argument that this is a completely new technology. You know,
Yeah.
it's not perfect. I think, and I don't think anyone is criticizing Starlink openly. I think what I read in here just seems like a description of what security experts on the Ukrainian front are saying. I personally, there's just much you can do, and there's much you want at the beginning. You just want to implement those, security procedures by default when you build anything. As I said, it's just a very new piece of technology.
Yeah.
I think it would be unfair to point fingers at Starlink at this moment in time. Obviously, I mean, I think so. That's the first point. The second one is if an attacker is motivated, they will hack you. I mean, you remember this Stuxnet attack in the early 2000 when Israel. Yeah. So if they want to get to you, they will manage to do it, and there are very different techniques they can use. Zero click and 0-day attacks, etc. So again, it's about what are your what can you do to ensure that you can spot those those bad behaviors, those attacks as quickly as possible, and that you can recover. Now I appreciate we're in the middle of a war and that pressure mounts, but the first thought would be they will get there with security. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's actually very interesting. For what I know, because I read something before this article, right? This was actually like an emergency, alternative, right? So during the war, while the Russian government was already targeting the network infrastructure of Ukraine, apparently Elon Musk, basically interceded to say, I'm actually giving Ukraine access to my, to my technologies, to my infrastructure. So I guess usually this is not the case. Usually you will try to plan this kind of things in advance, so you also have the time and the possibility to not really make sure it's secure, but do whatever is possible, right? To make it as secure as possible. Now, during this very special scenario, of course, it's especially difficult, no matter the technology. And as you said, in this case, attacks are going to be targeted, are going to be very high effort and motivated, right? So they tried attacking Ukraine infrastructure before with the previous infrastructure, and now they are trying, and maybe they did or they will eventually succeed doing it. Regarding the satellite connection, I think there are a couple things that are interesting. First of all, is that I'm not sure. I'm not an expert, right? But my just brainstorming here, I would say that there's less attack surface. Like it's all satellites and only the antennas to connect to them. So you can target the antennas, right? If you can find them, which is one of the possibilities, or and it's actually the case for that is described in the article here. You can actually try to target the client themselves that try to connect to the network. Whatever kind of network is that. I'm actually going to read a little more from the article here. What the Ukraine unit found out was that some of the tablets that military was using during missions and that were stolen, right? They were gathered from the Russian military, were found again in the battlefield and recovered. When they recovered these tablets, that again are it's property of the Ukrainian government. Sorry, they actually analyzed it instead of just blindly using them again, which is actually very smart. Chapeau. And apparently they found out a list of different malwares, some of which or one of which was, am I quoting here, targeting the satellite connection. Now, for me, this is not, really clear because that can mean anything and nothing at the same time. What exactly that means, but we are not going to the technical aspects because we don't know about it. It's just not specified. But it's interesting the way Russia tried to do this, right? So collecting or stealing actual devices and installing their malwares, then leaving those devices around in the battlefield. Hopefully, hoping that the Ukrainian military will gather them again and start to use them, start to use some compromised devices. This is actually very similar to, you actually mentioned that, right, with the Stuxnet incident. It's the same thing as dropping USB sticks, on a street that actually contain malware and waiting for someone to actually take that USB drive just out of curiosity, put that USB drive on your computer, and then from there the malware can spread from the USB drive to the rest of the network.
Yeah,
it's actually very clever. It's a very old technique and still very effective, apparently, right?
Yeah, and I think it would also be interesting to understand, I mean, is satellite technology safe, as a default? I mean, this is something I personally would like to understand a bit more because, I mean, when I think about wireless, you think about wireless devices. In my house, I made the decision of limiting the use of wireless as much as I can, because I'm a big fan of wired connection. It's safer, it's more reliable. So I guess the other point would be, what assessments were made, to ensure we see that at work, all the time, companies will, especially at a certain level, they will assess products, services, do all sort of vetting, penetration testing, all of those things to ensure that the devices and products they use are safe for the company, so they don't introduce more risks. I mean, and I don't know if this is public. I doubt this is publicly accessible information, but what kind of vetting, what kind of checks were made by Ukraine or even NATO? Because I think that a lot of the devices that are somehow connected to those, a lot of like the shell and the weapons that are used on the ground that are supplied by a lot of European countries, they will have some sort of connection with those satellites, right? So I mean, what was the security baseline that was built in a preventative manner, again assuming that some sort of compromise will always happen, because when you play at a certain league, you just assume that something will happen, right?
So I'm thinking, I read about something like researches from third parties in the past. There were some hardware vulnerabilities, so something that you can try to exploit if you get physical access to the antenna itself, right? And that, I think that could still be a case because it's really difficult to replace hardware, to update hardware, right? I don't know like how long ago I actually read this, and whether there's a new version of the antenna, so that kind of thing is not the case anymore. But there, as you said, there will always be new stuff, and hardware, firmware or hardware vulnerabilities will always be one of the possibilities here. And again, especially during a physical conflict like this, you can definitely have just soldiers directly targeting those hardware and trying to steal in them so they can try to experiment something. So that could be a case. But that's surely scary, right? Because if you can somewhat try to access to the antenna itself, the next step will be getting access to the network itself, right? So if you can get some level of access to the entire satellite networks, now I'm not sure exactly, as you said, how many levels of security measures are in place in there, or if you can actually access to whatever is going around, not only from the Ukraine maybe party, but also other organizations that are using the same kind of technology, right? The other thing is that, of course, it's so there are two things, right? There is the connection that is going directly to the satellites and connecting to the rest of the network, but locally you're still using like a normal LAN network with I don't know if cables or Wi-Fi, depends on the specific case here. So on the spot, like on Earth, you still have a normal network that you can try to access in all of the normal means, normal attack vectors that we already know. Regarding the like auditing or checks that any organization should do when starting to use a new technology, again, I will say that in this case they didn't have the chance to do many of them, right? It's actually specified somewhere in the article, not sure where, that when Elon Musk proposed this thing right here, Ukraine tried to ask some sort of recommendation from the United States government, like, is this guy someone we should trust, and the technology from this company right here? But it's not really a technical check, right? It's more like something regarding trust, that is, surely it's something, right? Surely it's something that you should probably take care of on that level, but it's not taking into consideration the technical aspects, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you choose a provider from any regarding any technology, and maybe I don't know, as a first, maybe public administration or government stuff, you prefer some providers that are from some countries instead of others, like
Yeah.
it's something like that. But it's not really, okay, did we check whether there are any vulnerabilities? Did we check whether there is any hole that my adversary can actually exploit? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think this is a very interesting article, because if you look at the bigger picture, like the logistics and the movement on the ground, it's a vital aspect of warfare. I still remember the quotes from Napoleon generals and soldiers. There was one guy who once said, we all think about Napoleon as a grandiose strategist. They used to say, he wins battle with our legs. He would impose forced marches onto his troops to basically, he would force them to march at night, and so that it was completely unexpected for the adversary to see the French army to show up somewhere, because of course, back in the days, it would to do 20 in one day. I can do 20 kilometers, so there is no way they can chase us. They can, we can stage a battle in one day. But by doing that, they were able to anticipate the enemy, right? And that was all about strategy, all about movement on the ground, physical movement on the ground, and that's how he won loads and loads of battles before the inevitable defeat. But fast forward today, if we look at this situation now, I mean, what they're trying to do is the exact same thing. By looking at the Russians, by looking at the satellite, they want to understand what are the tactical, plans of the Ukrainian army, to try and prevent them in a way, or to try to take countermeasures. So, at the end of the day, strategy and tactical aspects are still the same. It's technology that changes, right? So I think this is, very intelligent what they are doing from a strategic perspective, understanding what is my enemy trying to do, what tools do I have at my disposal? Well, they're using Starlink. Okay, Starlink, what can I do about it? Is there anything I can do to take advantage in a war? So it's the same thing, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. There are actually, so of course, like war is not exactly my field, right? But if I need to try to apply my knowledge to that kind of context, there could be two kind of high level purposes in engaging with the cyber conflict, right? During a war, you could have, of course, disruption. You don't want your adversary to be able to communicate, because we are talking about communications, right? We are talking about the ability of an army to coordinate in the field and everything, know where to go, what to do, and everything. And if you can stop that communication, you're already disabling part of the ability of the adversary army to actually be effective, let's say. The other thing, as you said, it's basically intelligence, right, or espionage, knowing what they are planning to do, knowing what they are going to do in the near future. So I think that's going to be the purpose in this specific case, because again, let's say that the attack was actually successful, and Ukrainian army start to use those devices which are compromised without not noticing that there's some malware in it, and probably, and this is just some guessing because we probably will not get to know about it, but probably the first thing that the Russian army will do is to start eavesdropping, right, the communications and gathering information, and taking advantage of that. If I know where the army is going to move, maybe I can address that in a timely manner and
Yes.
do the difference, right?
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense, because again, looking at what happened back in the days, of course, like espionage was not as sophisticated from a technological perspective as it is nowadays. But if you think about World War II, what really turned World War II was this German spy hired by the Russians, Richard Sorge. He was, not many people know about it, but it's really, really cool, because I think it's consistent with what you just said. This guy was a German gentleman, but he was a communist, so he went to Russia, to the Soviet Union. They, enlisted him, and they basically sent him to Japan, who was obviously one of the allies of Nazi Germany. Now, he managed to sneak himself into the German community. He told them, hey, I'm a German, I'm a Nazi. He became best friend with the ambassador and the consul in Japan. He made connection with very high ranked military personnel. And what he managed to do, which is absolutely fantastic, he had one of his friends, he built a radio. He basically they bought all the pieces of the radio. They assembled the radio in there, and they were able to communicate with Moscow. Now, World War II, at the beginning, the Russians were losing on all fronts. I mean, the Nazis got so close to take Moscow. But obviously, and they were very, very close to capitulate. But Stalin had a big army in Mongolia, basically, northern China, because they were really concerned of an attack from the Japanese. So what this guy, Richard Zorge, managed to do, he managed to convince or to influence, not to convince the Japanese government not to attack the Russians, but to attack the Americans in Pearl Harbor. And he gave Stalin this piece of information. So he said, you can be 100% sure, move the army. And then he moved Zhukov, the guy who, by the way, took Berlin and won the battle in Stalingrad. So back to your point, gathering information, it's absolutely vital. Of course, now it's a lot more sophisticated. It's a lot more difficult getting that level of information. It's a lot more complicated. But then again, it's the same story, right? It's the same story. It's just the means. Back in the days, it was assembled in a radio. Now you go onto satellites. You try to install pieces of malware on appliances.
And it's interesting what you said. You actually added a third point to what I said before, right? I was talking about disruption and then espionage, but then you also introduced influencing, what actually will be the next steps of your adversary. So I think that could be another step. In case, again, I'm brainstorming here, but if you are already into the network, and at some point you can disguise as one of the high level generals or whatever, and start to introduce fake communications to the army and drive the adversary in the places you want them to be, right? That's maybe even another step. So yeah, it's actually very interesting. I've read some books on intelligence in general in the past and how it developed with the new technology. I actually, as usual, forgot all the names of the books, but really suggest anyone that is listening or watching to deep dive a bit, because it's a really interesting field and topic. It's something that not all of us in the field will get to really get in touch with. Maybe likely depends on the point of views, but yeah, you know what, I think this is a very big news and topic in general. We could talk about this for a lot of time, but I think it's a good idea to move to the next one. So before we do it, again, just a quick reminder: if you're watching this or listening to this and you think it's interesting, please consider letting us know your thoughts as well, just hit that subscribe button so that we know someone is actually interested in this, and we will just keep going, right? So next news, another very, very big topic here. So the thing here is deepfake, right? That is a very big, I wouldn't say it's not really a buzzword yet, but maybe it has been some time ago. This article is actually a collection of different events and facts, and I'm going on introduce some of them. First of all, what we are talking about deepfake is that let me try to find the words. AI application, so artificial intelligence application on videos specifically, but probably even audio is a thing, where you basically simulate someone else's voice and appearance in, of course, audio recording, video recording, or even live during a live meeting or something, even during a streaming like this that we are doing right now. Maybe not really Giorgio Verticone, is someone else doing this and faking my appearance and voice. Who knows? So this is, let's say, the topic. The fact, there are actually multiple of them. First one that I thought it's actually very interesting is that August 17th, and I'm reading here, so highlighting for the people watching the video. Basically, Mandiant documented, or just reported about um, a phishing kit, basically. So organization who provide tools and documentation and basically guides on how to run some phishing attacks, right? So we mentioned this multiple times in the previous episodes, but phishing is just a let's say social engineering application where you try to steal some information that the person you're talking to will not usually provide to you, or just influence the behavior. Maybe you want to force someone to install something on their computer, maybe a malware or something. So that's what we are talking about. And in this case, apparently, this advertising on Telegram and some hacker forums, reading again, uh, basically they were providing some sort of tool or software to do some deepfakes, right? So you don't have any particular technical knowledge, right, about AI or something, but you intend, or you are planning to run a phishing attack against an organization. So you go to these gentlemen and just pay them in order to give you this tool or software and this guide to basically uh, find a way to deepfake someone. So right, you find, I don't know, the perfect example will be you replicate the appearance of the CFO or any other C-level or executive person of the target organization, right? And you communicate to someone else, again in audio call or video call, and convince them to move maybe a lot of money to to something that usually should not be done by the company. So maybe your own account or something. Uh, this is very scary. Multiple people were talking about this, about the possibility, right, that in the future something like this will happen. I don't think many viable things were actually observed in the wild. This will be one of the first of this kind. And again, the fact that someone can just provide you like the technology that is ready just to use, and you don't really have to have any knowledge to build it. This is really scary, right? It's yet another tool in the hands of the whoever has bad goals or purposes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, this all boils down to, progress in general, right? I mean, now everything is available to people, right? I mean, you take the example of, modern IT, just a very simple example. You talk to those people, some of our colleagues, they've been in the wild since, like in the IT industry since probably the 1980s, when computers were at the very embryonic stage, but they, were those people spending a lot of time, in their garage, building computers and learning command lines, all sort of things. So now you talk with them and everything is easy because they really know how it works under the hood. They really do. And another example is cars, right? I mean, my wife is trying to get a driving license, and at the beginning, I was trying to persuade her to go for a manual gearbox car. She just wants to go for the automatic, but yeah, it's easier with the automatic, but then you understand a lot less how a car responds when you drive. It's the same with IT, right? So everything is a lot easier, but then you don't really know how things work, and then in a way you're a lot less knowledgeable. Yeah, you can reach to a lot of different things, but then can you really master your craft? You know, do you
Yeah.
are you capable of making sound decision? Because you can be in the best possible, you know, you can have the best intents and purposes, but then if you don't know how something works, and this is the case, right? You know, you receive a phone call or you just received a text message from your CFO, you say, oh my God, you know, how do you probe it? How do you probe it? I mean, this is training. So, I mean, you know, it's chicken and egg. You know, do you want to give a tool to everybody? Yeah, but, you know, I also want people to know what they're doing, because, you know, otherwise they can stumble on themselves and make a lot of mistakes, which can be quite scary, and you know, can, you know, basically trip you up.
So that's true. And also, very difficult to find an alternative, right? Because the world we are living in today, really, many organizations, so many fields are relying on technology today, right? And that's also because technology is so cheap and so available, and so easy to use, right? That's the point. I think probably especially in the last 10 or 20 years, we go to not really create more powerful technology, much more on let's create more usable technologies for everyone to use, so that you don't have to be an expert on the what's happening under the hood of the technology itself, but just using it to reach your goals, to provide a service, and so on and so forth. That, as always, as the pro and cons, right? Many people are working thanks to technology today. I right now I am able to do this with you from remotely, without being in the same room, and I'm not really an expert in I don't know streaming technology or anything. I'm actually using a cloud service myself. So there's so much, many things that are so exciting, and at the same time you're really right. If you don't know how your car works, and you're driving it and suddenly it stops, you don't know what to do about it. Maybe that was different at the time when they invented the car or something, right? You had to know how it worked. You had to know how to maybe fix something if you had to be stuck in in the middle of the road or something. And it's actually interesting also to think about how these influences both the, let's say, good and bad people, right? We are talking about everyday life and everyone life, but this is also the same for attackers. I always like to reiterate or stress about in this podcast the fact that attackers are just other human beings, right? Are just other people that just uh, chose a different way to live their lives. And in the same way, at the very beginning of the internet or the computer technology, you had maybe very skilled hackers and very skilled cyber criminals who had to be very knowledgeable about what they were doing, how they were perpetrating their attacks. And nowadays you can just go on Telegram, run a search, like, I don't know, a phishing kit or deepfake or something, and pay few dollars to someone to get to access to incredible technologies, right? Incredible software that permits you to do something that a few years ago we didn't know it was even possible, and without knowing anything about it. And that's even scarier. Like, we have to think about that the potential attackers will be always more and more, because it's not just the skilled people, it's whoever has bad intentions, right? Whoever wants to target your organization potentially can do that without any big efforts or big knowledge or big preparation. They can just pay someone to get to anything they really need. This is really scary, and it's actually something that we will take again in the next news. It's something that it's basically the new business. How do you say it? How the cyber criminal business work today? They are basically doing stuff as a service in the same way the normal organizations are doing, right?
Yeah, and they're getting very, very smart. I mean, back to your point, at some point you were talking about artificial intelligence. I mean, I was talking to actually, a friend, and he lives in a European country. He's got, incredibly high, probably the most skilled security professional I know, and a friend of mine. And what he was telling me is that something very scary, just to bring the conversation a level, a step forward to what you were saying. LLM models, right?
Mhm.
So basically, what they are seeing in this particular country is that this is being leveraged by pedopornography as well. So people trying to camouflage what they do, they use this model to create those images to confuse the police. So the police doesn't know what content is legit and what content is fake. So this way, the police doesn't really know where to go. They will know in time, but they just waste time, right? So you probably go and chase something for, I don't know, 2 weeks, that you then realize being nothing, and then the perpetrator manages to. It's like a DDoS attack in a way, if you think about it. You just launch a DDoS attack to say everybody goes there, and then you attack something else, right? So it's it's just attacks are bad, but then there are also other elements that are even more concerning, if
Mhm.
when it comes to children and
Actually,
more vulnerable people.
what you just mentioned, it's perfect, because I was reading one of the other facts described in the article, and it's talking about a researcher, an employee from CyberArk, that basically just as a way to I don't know, just do a prank or sensibilize their people in the company. Basically, simulated this on deepfake of the CEO, right? And called did the phone, not a phone call, but a video call with the CEO, and just shown as the CEO itself, right? So it was him, right? It was the engineer, the researcher behind the screen, but what the CEO was actually seeing on the screen was the CEO face itself, right? And it is connected to what you said, because this researcher here then took this research in a speech, in a talk to a recent security conference, and described what was the process to in order to be able to do this. And the very start, and it's I'm quoting here again, it's written here, was starting to basically study some popular deepfake pornography, right? That is one of the first things that came to be common to do with deepfake, right? So let's say, unfortunately, pornography is one of the first things that really take place in the internet in general, and it's exploiting any new technology, right? And the fact that you can create from scratch some nudes photos or something, it's actually very very useful for the people that are gaining money out of it. So of course it was one of the first application of it. And just the guy was saying that with just few days of study and experimenting and work, he was able to get the technology, get the software, and then he started to just make it learn, right, from images and videos of his CEO, to then create a decent simulation of his face um, and voice. It's actually interesting that he's saying that he actually had some issues with the voice itself, with some particular words or particular saying. You could determine that it was actually weird or artificial or fake. But it's also true that unfortunately we are used to have bad audio, bad video during meetings, during everything, because of bad connections. So you really don't care or don't pay really too much attention to it. So it can still be effective even if it's not 100% today, and still tomorrow it will probably be 100% perfect. I was actually thinking about what is the countermeasure to this? What is the how do we protect ourselves from this? And it's probably I read something as well, but it's probably just using the same technology to do the opposite, right? We use AI to create a fake image, and there are ways, there are some experiments on how to use the AI to recognize fake images from the right ones. So it's a constant run for who get the new technology to do the good thing or the bad thing, depending on which side you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So think that's pretty much it. Or again, we could talk about this for forever probably, but still we have a few other news that it's worth to talk about today. Next one. So here we are talking about another stuff as a service. So another thing as a service that criminals are doing out there, and it's maybe something that nowadays is not. So it's very old, right? It's not a new thing, but today I think that most of the news out there and most of the things that you find searching on the internet about cyber criminals, it's mostly ransomware stuff, right? So that's the thing that you get to know most often. But that's actually another very lucrative business out there. And this is the what it was referred to before as carding, or collecting how do you say it, financial cards, or how do you say it in English?
Credit cards.
Yeah, credit cards, exactly, thank you. So credit cards, or nowadays even just credentials to the home banking accounts, and so on and so forth. So basically, collecting as many different credit accounts as possible, so that criminals that can be just steal the money out of them, or resell them to someone else in order to be reused, or just reinserted in the market, so they can disguise into the multiple operations they're going to do. This particular article is talking about the so-called Classiscam. So again, we are talking about a network that is even more expanding nowadays on Telegram. Again, we have what it is called phishing kit. So this criminal group is basically building all of the tools, all the software that you need in order to again run a phishing attack, and eventually collect either credentials or credit card details. And once again, you can just reach out to one of those Telegram accounts or Telegram groups, pay something, and get to access those software that with few clicks can create a phishing website, that is asking for card details or home banking accounts, and maybe also resembling the website from a legitimate bank, right? There are also some numbers here. This is a report from Group IB, and you can see how there are 251 different banks that were targeted, right? In 79 different countries. So, and this is very interesting. They are not really doing this on one single, let's say, point of failure. They have actually many different Telegram groups out there, so that eventually, even if one of those is going to be closed, they have so many others that they can use to reach out to their customers, right? Their clients. And yeah, this is basically the same concept of before, right? You don't have to have any knowledge to do something like this, and this is actually very, very targeted, because I think, with ransomware as a service, we have discussed about something like this in previous episodes. Ransomware as a service, usually, if you pay for this service, you want maybe to target an organization, right? You want to ransom a company or something. If you pay for something like this, in my mind, I'm thinking that what you want to do is actually target a person, right? Or individuals, because you are really aiming for the personal accounts from people, or personal savings, personal credit cards. It's true that you can also do that with credit cards from a company, but it is more effective when you just run this through hundreds or thousands of individuals and gather the savings from all of them, right? So this is actually, in my mind, mostly targeting individuals and normal people out there that don't have like a security team behind that is trying to defend the company. It's just about the awareness of the single person, or maybe to the bank that is actually that should at least try to educate their customers on the threats that are out there, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that's also why in banking, at least what I've seen in the previous works as well, is the financial system are always very highly regulated. A lot of compliance. When it comes to end user data, GDPR, it's a very heavily regulated industry. I think there are also some techniques. This is probably an old one, right? That was used back in the day when you would just take a like a screenshot of a web page, or a familiar web page. Let's say your banking, your home banking website, or your supermarket, online grocery, or whatever. And then you just upload it back on the web page as a PNG, and then you just tell the person, click here, and then when they click on that particular image, it will trigger the download of a malware or something, and at that point it's already too late, right? Of course, that takes awareness, but it also, I wouldn't be surprised if even somebody who is pretty skilled from an IT perspective could be, could be, like
Target, right?
targeted or hacked
Yeah.
from this kind of technique. So yeah, I think it's that's the point. I guess that there are so many threat actors, so many motivated people targeting or chasing organization or individuals that I guess it's probably that so far we've been lucky enough not to be targeted by by those people. If they want to, it's not going to take long before they manage to sneak through.
Yeah. This is so true, and also like a mission that I personally feel the obligation to run through. Like the fact that for many years, IT people or security people always said that uh, it's it's actually the fault of the users, right? When they are hit by a phishing attack or something, when they click on that malicious link or malicious attachment, it's actually their fault that thing happened. But I'm actually not really I don't agree with that point of view. And I think something is actually changing recently, because the point is, um, you know cyber attacks are targeting computer vulnerabilities, right? Technology vulnerabilities, and that's something that we know, or we try to address in a certain way, right? There are actually multiple ways, but we try to defend ourselves in a technological manner. But phishing, it's actually the oldest thing, and it's still so effective for a very simple reason, that is targeting human vulnerabilities, right? It's social engineering is targeting biases, something that we have in our DNA, something that all of us, no matter how much are you skilled, no matter how knowledgeable you are, no matter what kind of job you are doing or in what field you are doing that, you can still be a victim of that, especially if you are not, if you are tired of you had a very bad day at work or whatever, or if you are working too much, and you have so many other tasks to do or something, and you are not very paying too much attention on what you see on your screen, right? Anyone can feel can be a victim of such attacks. And it doesn't really have to be a really targeted thing, in my point of view, right? Just the how do you say it, the right time, right? If they hit you on the right time, on the very moment where you are not really taking too much attention on what you're doing, you can still be a victim. And that means that it's not about victimizing, is that a word? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
giving
For
fault to
blaming.
people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about, of course, to teach them, probably, or make them aware of the kind of threats, which is a part of it. It doesn't make people completely secure automatically, but still can help with it. And with I would say just repetition and discipline, right? If this is something that you do multiple times, at some point, like in the military, right, you learn how to automatically respond to certain threats. It's still not 100%, but you can help in reducing the risk of such kind of threats, right?
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that we, as a society, or like professionals, emphasize probably too much prevention. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love prevention. I think it's the golden rule of life, not only in security, in every aspect of life, 100%, completely. Okay. But I think, the upshot of this conversation we are having is, if somebody wants to get to you, they will, whether it's you as an individual, whether it's you as an organization, whether it's you as a department, right? They will get to you. So it's about, how do I make sure, if we don't want to talk security terms, and how do you ensure you have a plan B? What's your plan B if you get hacked? What's your plan B if somebody sneaks into your house with a gun? What's your plan B if you gain too much weight because of whatever reason? So I think and that's why in security, and in companies, there is this element of recovering from a disaster. Okay, it can be a physical disaster, but it can also be an attack. I think this is a very, very important aspect, and something that is kind of worrying me, if we want to broaden the conversation a little bit. People talk a lot about cloud, right? And that's great, but I can assure you that when you go and look at the cloud security tools, most of those tools, at least native tools, are preventative tools, which again it's great, and it's absolutely, you know, vital that those tools are there. You know, you don't want, you know, if you think up, you know, it's like you say, you know, in my house, yeah, you know, I just want to put security cameras, yeah, but you don't have any door so anybody can get in, right? So you put the door first and then you look at the security cameras. But I think there is a big job to be done in terms of ensuring that there are, you know, there is a plan B. You know, what happens if, you know, and there are all those role plays, because as you said, you know, it can happen to everyone. You know, it's not just the, you know, old person who is about to retire and doesn't know, you know, what's going on, and then clicks on something silly. No, it can be anyone. And I mean, it's not just phishing. You know, there's a lot of things that can be done. You know, you can steal a token. You know, you can, you know, if you're authenticating somewhere, if you just have access into a network, there's a lot of things that means you get hacked even if you don't make a mistake, right? It's just the initial step that you make into an organization that, yeah, you know, that's where phishing is important and effective. But, you know, it's, you know, it sounds a buzzword, but it's assuming the compromise, you know, all the times, and having this plan B in place.
It's always like that in cybersecurity, right? You need to put, you know, multiple layers of both security measures, but also, you know, um, even processes. The point is that, of course, you try to prevent as much as possible. We know for sure that it's not going to prevent 100% of the stuff out there, and at some point you need to be able, of course, to detect, so to be aware of that something is going on, right? That something is actually happening, and to respond in sense of what do I do now? Okay, someone hacked me. What should I do? How they, you know, how I block this, and how I try to restore what is uh, you know, what is now gone, or how do I make sure that this doesn't happen, you know, again in the future? And it's so interesting to think about how this is so true for both organizations, where this is, you know, pretty much something that we are aware of, but it's also true for individuals. Like, how many people out there are actually thinking in advance, okay, what if someone hacks into my bank account? Do I know what should I do when I will be aware of it, right? Let's say that, you know, yeah, I'm hit by a phishing attack. I'm not really paying too much attention, so I actually click on that link, and maybe, yeah, later I think about it and I say, oh, damn it, maybe I hadn't to do that, and now this is bad. But do I know what to do now, right? Because that's the point. If you never think about, okay, maybe I should call my bank and make my, you know, cards to be blocked immediately, maybe I should break my card, maybe I should change my credentials in the website, and so on and so forth. Maybe I should check my if my application on my device is still enabled, or should I block it from there? These are all steps that someone, you know, and basically anyone, because most of the people out there are now using home banking, or you
Yeah.
know, internet things to access their credit. The point is that not so many people will know what to do when the bad thing happen, because the bad thing will happen eventually, right? To you, or to someone you know, near to you. Because maybe, okay, maybe you are a security guy, maybe you are so sure that you know, you will be never hit by something like that. You know, that's your opinion, good for you. But what about, you know, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mom, or your grandpa is hit by something like that? Maybe they don't know. Most of the people will not know, but maybe you should think about that for the other people that you can also help to protect, and help to respond to to those threats. So I think this is very interesting, how all of those processes and you know, measures that we as a field developed for the organizations are actually very true, and very um, usable or applicable for just normal people, for just individuals. We actually have our own network, right? If I use a device and if I use my personal computer and a bunch of IoT stuff in my home, I have my personal network that I should be aware of, and I should know how to take the very minimum defenses on, and how to try to respond, even if your process is okay. I need to call my my IT guy, my IT friend, to help me with that. If you don't think about that, and if that happens to you, maybe it's too late when you start thinking after it happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this again, when you mentioned the network, it ties back to the what we were saying earlier. The under the hood kind of discussion. Now, I think there is a generation, people who are adult. There will be some gap that needs to be addressed. But I think for newer generations, and again, I mean, I haven't gone to school for a long time now. I mean, my son will start next week, but I'm not entirely sure that at school we are teaching basic IT, and this is at the forefront. It's really important. It's really important. I think it should be a core subject like math, like literature, like science, basic coding. Because I mean, how can you be? I mean, you say you want to reduce risk? Yeah, educate people. Don't teach me like this kind of like stuff about ethical stuff at schools. I mean, let's not go there. But I think this is very important. For kids. And again, chances are that even if they learn how to code, which is something I will never learn, by the time they get to my age, they will already be dinosaurs. But at least they master something, right? It's like being able to read. Yeah, I have to be able. We all learn how to read a book, but I think that now the next, the next frontier, the next area. The next challenge is learning how to speak the language of computers, and that's how to learn. How do you read a piece of code? How do you understand? Okay, this is probably not for everybody, but hey, I mean, when illiteracy rate was 95%, a few centuries ago, maybe people, having a chat, maybe not here, but on a field or somewhere, would say, yeah, but most people wouldn't be able to it, but now people can, right? So I think it's just about having the willingness and the motivation to put those kind of programs in place. Because again, you want to reduce risk, yeah, just don't give people a fish, teach them how to fish, right? As they say in English. So I think that's something very, very important that should be actioned immediately. But yeah,
Absolutely. And I'm so in love with this topic that I could start talking about this for the rest of the night. Like, I perfectly agree with you. By the way, I really think that you know technology and networks are in our life so deeply today that you cannot really avoid to know the very basics, right? You don't have to be an expert. Not everyone can be an expert at everything, but the very basics, it's I think it's really you know quite mandatory to know for the new generations, at least the generation that are starting to leave this world um, so filled with so much technology. But I unfortunately have to stop this discussion right
yeah,
now, just because we have still another news, and I don't want
yeah.
to go too late. Again, very very quick reminder: if you are still watching this, if you are still listening to us, I will really appreciate if you would like to leave a comment or share this, or even hit that subscribe button, because you will just let us know that you like this, and maybe you want more episodes. So I just know that we should continue to do this. Thanks. So, just to reach our last news for today, and I
This
promise
is
that I will
spicy.
let you go.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah. This is. I think all of them were interesting, but of course,
Yes.
I always try to get one of the most interesting ones and get to the end of the episode, and it's and it's actually the one that is going to give the name of the episode, right? So today's episode is the government breaks into your PC to kick off the attackers, right? The hackers, um, and it's I don't know, it's mind blowing. I'm going to introduce this. So we're talking about the U.S. government and the I'm not sure how to pronounce this, the QakBot or something like that. Um,
QakBot sounds
yeah,
like, yeah.
like that is uh, very common, malware, botnet, or even let's say groups of compromises and attacks that recently is so much used by many different groups actually. It's one of those again tools and technologies that groups rent to other people. So you can see that used by many different other groups. It was apparently a very big botnet. When we talk about botnet, just a quick parenthesis here. When we talk about botnet, we are talking about a network of devices around the world that were being compromised, and then now they are actually used as part of the attackers' infrastructure to run, various different kind of other attacks. Even DDoS or um, other kind of stuff. So QuackBot was or is still one of the most renowned botnets out there nowadays. But the U.S. government, and especially going to read here, Department of Justice and FBI run an operation, actually an international operation, to address and to basically try to shut down the botnet or at least part of it. Now, how they did it is actually very interesting. So there are different ways that law enforcement or intelligence units can try to address this kind of organizations. Of course, they can try to trace the very people that are running it and just arrest the people so they can stop running it. Of course, all of the organization are trying to prevent those botnets or those malwares, those attacks to get in their networks. But still, there are a lot. If there's a botnet, it means that many organizations, many devices were already compromised, right? So someone needs to at some point try to eradicate all of the history of attacks by this malware, right? Now, what the U.S. government did this time was to uh, potentially, and I'm guessing it because it's not specified, of course, try to what they call hackback. So they hacked into the actual infrastructure, actual command and control of the botnet, and they eventually, got access to a dashboard. So like a panel from where the attackers were actually controlling the botnet, right? So getting to know how many devices are there and potentially send commands to those devices. And once got access to that platform, since this specific malware is actually what they call a loader or dropper, is basically a malware that infiltrates in a device and then is used to deploy other piece of codes or other exploits, other malwares that will eventually run other activities. They used it, so they used the very malware that was installed in the compromised devices to deploy, like they call it, like a uninstaller. So something that eradicated the malware itself and blocked the way of access, basically. So blocked the probably access to the command and control, and eventually maybe try to patch the vulnerability. It's something I've read and something that I'm guessing right now. Um, and just this thing right here for me is mind blowing. So just to summarize, we're talking about a government that is basically accessing to third-party devices all around the world, and deciding, okay, I'm accessing it, but I'm doing it for a good reason, because I'm going to I don't know, eradicate the attackers from your own device. But still, you don't know about it. You didn't give any explicit permission to do so to them. So I think this is very, very controversial. Of course,
Yeah.
it's good what they did, right? It's not a bad thing, but it's very, very controversial. I think we can have a very nice discussion out of this.
Yes, it is, and I mean, let me start by saying that it's great that this piece of malware has been removed. So I think it's great that we're now in a safer world as far as this operation is concerned, right? Just to begin with, so that's great.
Yeah.
The following point, though, is that I think there is an ethical problem with that, because I don't want the government to intrude my life. Now, what happens here is that they've created a precedent. Now they've created a precedent. It's like during COVID. They shut us all. I mean, not in the UK, luckily, but I think in Italy, for example, they basically put their people at home, saying, "Yeah, it's for the common good." They put everybody at home. Now they've got a precedent. That's the same. What if in 5 years, government, and they're very good at doing this. Mounting up some sort of tragedy that is going to happen in our lives. And then as a result, they say, but then based on that, we need access to your, to your network or to your phone and scan all of your photos, for example. This is a very particular example. But again, the concept is the same. Once you've created a precedent, you can leverage, you can expand on that. I mean, something that happened in Italy, I think it was 1992 or 1993. The Italian state was going bankrupt. Because of a number of reasons. What they did, the Italian government, they basically accessed the bank account of, I don't know if all or many Italian people, and forcefully withdrew an amount of money. I think it was 1% of those bank accounts or something, which to me is outrageous. So, I mean, governments already have a lot of powers, and I don't like that. I mean, I don't want governments to intrude my lives. This is a very dangerous precedent, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I think I read about something not like this, but similar in the past, always from the US government for some reason, where, again, after chasing against some cyber criminals, as a consequence, the agencies got access to some devices, and in order to eradicate, also access to the compromised devices. And I think there are actually many different levels of you know um, concerns here, right? Of course, the first one is for sure ethical, right? We will find people who will think, on each sides of the controversy, right? Multiple people will say to you, yeah, but we need law enforcement to do this for justice, or to do this to defend ourselves. So, and I could actually agree with that, right? Again, for what we know, right, from this article, it was actually a very good thing. At the same time, it's still my property. Let's say that I actually had a device. I didn't know about it, but one of my devices was compromised and was part of this botnet. And I'm actually in another country, right? I'm wondering, did they check whether the devices they were accessing were from the United States or maybe from other countries, right? I know this was like an international operation, so there were other governments involved. So I'm not sure if there was something like, okay, all of the governments involved said, okay, you can access even to my people devices. I'm not sure if that's a thing. It will be probably even more concerning, probably. Um, but other than that, I'm thinking, like, many of those devices that were compromised, right? Many of those, there will be for sure, personal devices, but also devices from company networks, right? So from corporates or something. In order to eradicate the malware, they of course deployed some software, changed some configurations, did some stuff, run some commands on the host, right? No one is perfect in this life. No developer is perfect. No IT admin is perfect. What if they actually somewhere messed up with something? Right? I'm not talking about ethical things right now. What practical things. What if my company has some hosts that were compromised, but they were also delivering some services to my customers, and because of your other actions on my hosts, we will probably never know for sure, but maybe as a consequence, also had some disruption in my service. My service actually stopped for, I don't know, for some minutes or for some hours, and then I actually lost money, and then maybe some of my, now I'm exaggerating of course, but what if because of this one of my customers sue me because this happened? So there could be some consequences, right? And since the devices will not be all the same, I can have the same device as you, but I can configure it so that it's completely different. It will have a lot of different softwares and so on and so forth. So an action that you take on your device will not have the same impact, the same consequences on mine, just because I had a different configuration on it. So my question is, how did they had any concern about this? So what happens if I actually change something? What happens if I close this communication to this website or whatever?
They're government, they can do anything they want and they can get away. If they fail to collect your rubbish at your house for a weekend, they are fine. If you fail to pay your council tax, you're not going to go to jail, but ultimately, if you refuse to pay that particular tax, they will take you to jail. That's what they do. It's double standards. That's government, man. That's what they do. Another aspect I would stress there is the following. So if they say, I mean, the argument, oh yeah, law enforcement should, intervene, etc. Okay, then why don't they protect the network of all companies in that country? They pay tax. So, I mean, I think it's important to draw a line. Now, I mean, I don't know if some of those if those devices were managed, some of those devices were managed by the government and they were owned by the government. Okay, fair enough. This is your property. Fine, but as you said, there are a lot of items. If they find out that there is some sort of vulnerability in some of my devices, where there is a company, where there is a device of an individual, you just let the person know that, thank you very much, I paid you taxes for it, but whatever, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, again, it's great that they managed to eradicate this bit. So I don't want to sound like a bad person or anything, but I think the ethical concerns are big. And again, we are using double standards, because again, you intervene on my infrastructure. Okay, why don't you take it all over? So I think it's a very contentious aspect. It's very spiky, and I'm not even that sure that governments have the skill set out there. You and I know people, one person who, or people who worked in the military. They can tell you, a lot of people who work in the military and then left the military have a lot of knowledge, but you look at a lot of those, local government organizations, the skills that are there are not the best. I mean, even to give you an example, universities are public in most countries. I mean, a lot of universities are managed by the government, right? In one way, shape, or form. So in a previous life, I was looking at a master's degree of a state university in security or networking, they're still teaching things such as the token ring. The token ring. So, I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, I wouldn't want governments to, like manage the, cybersecurity strategy. I think you've got companies, you've got skilled individual, they can create boards, they can create trust, they can create organization, they can create, compliance standards. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I I don't really like the government intruding, but they will keep on doing it because most people love the idea of a big government, and that's why they keep the governments all over the world keep growing and growing and growing. That's because most people are happy being told what to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think again that probably both sides of this kind of discussion here will have very good points probably. Like we had similar discussions in previous episodes regarding um, you know not espionage but surveillance, right? So many governments are pushing to get access to encrypted connections and so on and so forth. Again, for very good reasons on the paper, but still with so big consequences that maybe most of those people are not really understanding what because those are technological consequences, and just someone that is working with just an expert can really understand it. uh, and but still I don't think it's so easy to reach a solution to this kind of controversy. This is something that will probably go on for so long. It's something that will continue to go, and there will always be some governments that are more going to be a little pushy on these things. Some governments that will just take it as granted. Okay, if I find something like this, I will just access to them and do whatever I like. And maybe some others could be a little more just privacy savvy or something regarding their people at least. um, so it's something that it's good to discuss about. It's good that there is a discussion, right? It's good that there's some exchange of thoughts and opinions between especially the private sector and the public sector, right? Also because of what you said before, unfortunately we know that generalizing, the public sector is not doesn't have access to the same skills and resources that the private sector has, mostly because of money. It's very simple in my point of view. Most private companies can pay a lot more for the same resources. But yeah, at the same time, if there is like an entity, like an organization that is entitled to do something like this, of course it's not going to be a private company, right? I will probably be even more concerned, even more outraged if a company would have done something like this, right? Here I'm concerned in the other way. If a private will do something like this and just randomly accessing other people's devices to do something, it will even be even worse. So it really depends on what is your point of view, what is your what is your consequence. And at the same time, I'm also so I like reading news. This is one of the reasons why I do this podcast, right? It's something that helps you a lot. But at the same time, I'll also know that we don't know all the aspects of the story. We just get to know a part of the story, so we don't really know exactly what they did. It could be a little of advertisement, just because they did a so very big and good thing. It could be that what they actually did technically, it's a little different and change all the story, because I'm thinking out loud here. But if they just stop the connections in some way from the command and control, instead of actually accessing the compromised devices, you could probably reach more or less the same result without doing any compromising again those hosts, basically.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the details that we will probably never know, right? So again, I really think that the good point here is discussing about it, having different opinions, especially publicly, because we have to have a public argument, a public discussion about this in order to reach some kind of results, whatever side are you in this discussion.
Agreed. And just a nugget for you. Do you know what's the country with the most CCTVs in the world? The UK. Talking
UK,
about
really?
space, yes, it's the country with the most CCTVs in the world. So wherever you go, I mean, and it's mostly used to give you fines and tickets when you park the car or access places that you are not supposed to. But that's
So you actually meant like a public CCTVs in like in
public
the street or
CCTVs.
something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've actually read about this somewhere, and I've been in there. I saw that you can see them around in the cities and everything. It's something that
Sometimes when you drive, they also hit the security, because sometimes when you're driving somewhere you don't know, right? And you say, okay, where should I turn? Okay, I have to park my car. Where do I go? Do I have a red light here, or can I park? And then just because you are focusing, then you just miss one security cameras, and then you are doomed. Or maybe you just or maybe the other way around, you want to go somewhere, and then you say, oh no, is there like a CCTV? Hey, I'm not able to access, and then you maybe drive over somebody on the zebra strips or something. So it's a double-edged sword. It is, but yeah. But
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
not about
So it's always interesting, getting to know how much just the public administration is messing around with our lives, or just find that threshold, like how much do they need to do it, and how much it's just a little too much, basically, right? Just
yeah.
I feel too heavy on my shoulders,
No,
this
but you're
kind of
right.
big
You're right.
brother.
You're right. You said the big brother. You said the threshold. Or you find the threshold, and then they apply, as they do for most things, the boiling frog technique.
Okay.
That's it. You just don't realize it. All of the sudden, yeah, that's
Yeah.
very old technique, not just nowadays technique. It's I
No.
think it's been around for a while.
As usual, as always, right? There are, we were talking about phishing before. Phishing is not a new thing, so the old techniques always work better. So,
Exactly.
Valerio, I really think that we should stop it, unfortunately, here. It has been so interesting, both for the news and I think we actually, actually spread a lot compared to what were the initial topics, and I think that's really good. I think that's the purpose, that's the point of all of these projects. The more you can talk, the more you can share ideas, share opinions, the more you can you can grow, basically, right?
Exactly.
And you always need someone else. You can do something, you can do a part of it alone, on your own. You can read the news and make your own opinions, but you will read about something that you don't know about in very deeply, and you can share ideas with someone who actually does, or someone that just has a different point of view on the same thing, and completely change your opinion on that. So again, thank you very much. This was so interesting. Hopefully it was even for you and the people who are watching and listening.
Yes.
And I'll definitely try to disturb you once again to join
No,
another
no, no.
episode.
It was very good. Thank you very much for having me. Really much enjoyed the conversation, sincerely. And thank you very much to you and listeners or watchers, I should say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. As as always, if you didn't make to watch the live streaming, I will re-upload very soon the video on YouTube and Spotify. So feel free to have a look at those and let us know what your feedback about our conversation, but also on all of the news that we spoke about. So that's all. Thank you very much, everyone, again, and have a good night, good day, whatever you have in front of you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ciao. Thank you.